Exploring intimacy. After the fierce battle with the creature, the clearing was quiet once more. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the scene. The once feared beast lay still, and the aliens, along with Ethan, were beginning to gather themselves. But amidst the exhaustion and relief, a different kind of tension lingered in the air, one that Lyra and Ethan could both feel. Lyra looked around, relieved to see her people tending to their injured. The alien leader, though still wary, had started to acknowledge Ethan's bravery. But her gaze kept returning to the human beside her. "We did it," she said softly, her heart still racing. Ethan turned to her, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Yes, we really did. I couldn't have done it without you." A flutter of happiness filled Lyra's chest at his words. She had never felt so connected to another being. Their shared victory against the creature had created a bond between them, something deeper than friendship. As the others worked around them, Lyra stepped closer to Ethan. "I want to thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You stood by me, and you fought for us." Ethan felt a rush of warmth at her words. "It was the least I could do. You showed me what it means to be brave." They locked eyes for a moment, and Lyra felt a flutter of emotions swirling within her: gratitude, admiration, and something more. It was thrilling and frightening all at once. "Why do I feel this way?" she wondered. Ethan took a small step forward, his heart racing. "Lyra, I..." He hesitated, unsure of how to express what he felt. "I feel like we have something special. I don't want to lose this connection." Lyra nodded, her breath catching in her throat. "I feel it too. I have never felt this way about anyone, especially not a human." They stood closer now, the noise of the clearing fading into the background. Ethan could see the softness in her eyes, and it made his heart swell. "What if we explore this feeling together?" Lyra took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "Together," she echoed, feeling a rush of excitement. "But how?" Ethan smiled, the warmth spreading between them like a gentle fire. "Maybe we can start by learning more about each other, sharing our stories, our dreams." Lyra felt a spark of hope. "I would like that," she said softly. "I have so many stories to tell you about my home, and I want to hear about yours." As they began to share their stories, Lyra found herself leaning closer to Ethan, captivated by his words. He spoke of Earth, the towering cities, the vast oceans, and the wonders of technology. Each detail brought the world to life in her mind, and she felt an intimacy growing between them. Ethan listened intently as Lyra spoke of her people, the beauty of Zephyria, and the connection they had with nature. "Your world sounds magical," he said, his voice filled with awe. Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. "It is, but I think Earth is magical too, in its own way." Their gazes held for a moment, and the air thickened with unspoken words. Lyra could feel her heart racing as she realized how much she wanted to know Ethan, not just his stories, but him as a person. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "can we trust each other completely?" Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand. "I promise, I will always be honest with you." Lyra felt a rush of emotions at his touch, a warmth that spread through her. She realized that this was the beginning of something beautiful, a journey of understanding, trust, and a deepening connection that neither of them had expected. In that moment, under the fading light of the sun, they both knew they were stepping into a new chapter, exploring not just their worlds, but the intimacy growing between them. The humans' arrival. Ethan's heart raced as he stood before the alien warrior Lyra. The dark jungle surrounded them, and he could hear the strange sounds of night creatures echoing in the distance. He had never been this close to an alien before. "What am I doing here?" he thought, panic creeping into his mind. "I just wanted to find the resource and go home." Lyra watched him closely, her grip firm on her spear. She could see the fear in his eyes. "He is just a human," she reminded herself. "But humans are dangerous. The memories of past invasions flooded her mind. They had brought nothing but destruction to her planet, and she could not allow that to happen again. "Please," Ethan said, trying to sound calm. "I mean you no harm. I just got lost." His voice shook slightly as he spoke. He could feel the weight of Lyra's gaze upon him, piercing and intense. "Why should I trust you?" Lyra replied, her voice cold and firm. "Humans only take. They do not give." She remembered stories of her ancestors who fought against humans. They had lost so much, and she could not let it happen again. Ethan took a deep breath. He needed to find a way to convince her. "I'm not like the others," he said. "I'm here for research, not to take anything." He hoped she would understand. Lyra hesitated. There was something different about Ethan. He didn't look like the warriors who had invaded before. He looked lost, scared even. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone softening just a little. "Why are you here?" Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. "I'm a scientist. I came to study the plants and animals here. Zephyria has resources that can help my world. But I got separated from my team and ended up here." He pointed behind him, where he thought his team might be. Lyra lowered her spear slightly, curiosity replacing some of her fear. "Your team. You came with others." She felt a strange pull toward him, a feeling she could not explain. "Yes, they are close by," Ethan replied quickly. "I can show you where they are, if you let me go. We mean no harm." Lyra thought for a moment. The idea of meeting more humans made her heart race, but she was torn. What if they are here to attack? She thought, her instincts kicking in. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise in the distance. It sounded like shouting. Ethan turned pale. "That's them," he exclaimed, his voice rising with panic. "They might need help." Lyra's instincts kicked in again. She knew she had to protect her territory. "Stay here," she ordered, and she stepped back into the shadows, keeping her spear at the ready. Ethan felt a surge of determination. "No, you can't leave me. I can help," he shouted, but Lyra was already gone, blending into the darkness of the jungle. In that moment, Ethan felt utterly alone. He was in a strange world, surrounded by creatures he did not understand. But he had to find his team. He took a deep breath and started to move cautiously toward the source of the noise, hoping Lyra would return and not betray him. As he walked, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter had changed everything. He had come to Zephyria for science, but now he was drawn into a struggle he never expected. What will happen next? He wondered, as the sounds of shouting grew louder. Climax of conflict. The clearing had erupted into chaos. The massive creature roared as it charged toward the armed aliens, its sharp claws digging into the ground. Lyra's heart raced as she stood beside Ethan, who was wide-eyed with fear and determination. "What do we do?" he shouted over the noise, gripping his makeshift weapon tightly. "We need to protect ourselves and each other," Lyra replied, her voice steady despite the panic swirling around them. She looked around, searching for a plan. "We can't let that creature get to us." The aliens were scrambling, trying to regain control of the situation. Their leader shouted commands, but the fear in their eyes told a different story. The beast lunged at them, swiping its massive claws. One alien fell, and the rest scattered, shouting in panic. Ethan glanced at Lyra, his mind racing. "If we don't help them, we'll all be in danger." Lyra nodded, her determination rising. "You're right. If we want to survive, we need to work together. Follow my lead." As the creature turned, its attention shifting to them, Lyra quickly motioned for Ethan to follow her. "We need to create a distraction." Ethan watched as she picked up a rock, her eyes sharp and focused. She threw it toward the beast, hitting it on the side. The creature turned, roaring in anger, its gaze now fixed on Lyra. "Now," she yelled, and Ethan grabbed a stick, running beside her. They dashed into the jungle, hoping to lure the beast away from the others. The creature followed, its massive feet pounding the ground. Lyra and Ethan darted through the trees, their hearts racing. "This way," Lyra shouted, leading the way. They quickly realized they had to get to higher ground. "If we can climb a tree, we can plan our next move," Ethan suggested, glancing back at the creature, which was now gaining on them. Lyra nodded, spotting a sturdy tree nearby. They reached it just in time, grabbing onto the lowest branches and climbing quickly. As they ascended, they could see the chaos below. The alien leader shouted commands, trying to rally his people against the beast. But panic had spread, and many were fleeing. "They're scared," Ethan said, looking down. "We need to help them." Lyra took a deep breath, focusing on the situation. "We can't let fear take over. If we want to unite our people, we have to show them that we can overcome this threat together." Ethan looked at her, admiration growing. "What do we do?" "We need to distract the creature again, but this time we need to signal the aliens to help us. We can use fire," she said, her mind racing. They quickly gathered dry leaves and branches. Lyra took out a small flint from her pack. "If I can create a spark, we can start a fire." As she worked, the creature below continued to roar, and the aliens were in disarray. Ethan looked down and saw the leader still shouting, trying to rally the troops. "If they see us working together, maybe they'll join us." With a spark, the fire ignited, crackling loudly. Lyra waved her arms, trying to catch the aliens' attention. "Look, we can fight back." The leader turned, seeing the fire. He hesitated for a moment, and then shouted to his people, "Follow them. We fight together." Ethan's heart raced with hope. As the aliens began to regroup, they noticed the fire and started to take positions alongside Lyra and Ethan. Lyra looked at Ethan, excitement lighting up her eyes. "This is it. Together, we can defeat the creature." With renewed strength, they all prepared to face the beast, united in a way they had never thought possible. The climax of their conflict was at hand, and in that moment, they felt the power of unity, the hope for a future that could be shared between their worlds. External threat. The sun was now high in the sky, casting a warm glow over the jungle of Zephyria. Lyra and Ethan sat together, their conversation flowing easily. Laughter echoed through the clearing, and for a moment, they felt as though they were the only two beings in the universe. But that peace was about to be shattered. Suddenly, the soft sounds of the jungle changed. The air grew tense, and the birds that had been singing flew away in a flurry. Lyra's instincts kicked in, and she looked around, her heart racing. "Something is wrong," she whispered, her previous warmth replaced by unease. Ethan sensed her shift in mood. "What is it?" he asked, his voice low. Before Lyra could respond, a loud crashing sound echoed from the direction of the forest. Branches snapped, and the ground trembled. "We have to be ready," she said, standing up and gripping her spear tightly. Ethan stood beside her, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "What's coming?" he asked, trying to peer into the shadows of the trees. "I don't know," Lyra replied, her eyes narrowing. "But it doesn't sound friendly." Just then, a group of heavily armed aliens burst into the clearing. They were tall and menacing, their eyes cold and focused on Lyra and Ethan. The leader, a fierce-looking creature with dark scales, pointed a weapon at them. "You traitor," he shouted, his voice booming. "You dare to speak with a human. You are a disgrace to our people." Lyra's heart sank. "It's not what you think," she yelled back, stepping protectively in front of Ethan. "He means no harm. We were just talking." The leader sneered, his eyes glinting with anger. "Talking? You are betraying our kind. Humans only want to destroy." Ethan felt fear grip him, but he stood tall, meeting the leader's gaze. "I am not here to fight," he declared, his voice steady. "I want to understand your world and help, not harm." The other aliens looked at Ethan with suspicion, weapons raised. The leader laughed bitterly. "Help? We need no help from a human," He motioned to his comrades. Seize them. Panic surged through Ethan as the aliens advanced. Wait, he shouted, his mind racing. He remembered Lyra's stories about her people. You don't have to do this. We can find a way to work together. Lyra, sensing the urgency, stepped forward. Please, listen to him. This is not what we want. Her voice rang out with a mix of authority and desperation. If we fight, we all lose. We can find a better way. But the leader was unmoved, his face twisted with anger. You are weak, Lyra. You forget your duty to our people. Just as the aliens were about to attack, a loud roar echoed through the jungle. The ground shook again, and the trees trembled. All eyes turned toward the source of the noise. A massive creature burst into the clearing. A fierce beast covered in scales, with sharp claws and glowing eyes. It seemed to have been disturbed from its slumber, and it was angry. Ethan felt a surge of fear as he realized they were all in danger now. We need to get out of here, he shouted, grabbing Lyra's arm. But before they could move, the beast charged straight at the group of aliens. Chaos erupted as the armed aliens turned to face the new threat, shouting in panic. Retreat, the leader shouted, but it was too late. The creature lunged, and everything erupted into chaos. Lyra and Ethan stood frozen for a moment, caught between the threat of the beast and the hostility of the aliens. We need to work together, Lyra urged, looking at Ethan. Ethan nodded, his heart pounding. Let's help each other. In that moment of fear and uncertainty, they knew they had to fight against the external threat together, or they would all be lost. A new beginning. The sun set slowly over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the clearing. Lyra and Ethan sat side by side, still wrapped in the comfort of their shared stories and newfound connection. The chaos of the battle with the beast felt like a distant memory, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Lyra looked around at her people. They were tending to the injured, sharing their own stories of bravery, and the air was filled with a sense of unity. For the first time, she felt a deep pride in her people. We are stronger together, she thought, glancing at Ethan. Ethan noticed her gaze and smiled. You've done an amazing job bringing everyone together, he said, his voice warm. You should be proud. Lyra felt a rush of happiness at his words. Thank you. But I couldn't have done it without you. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the connection between them deepened. Lyra realized how much she had come to trust Ethan. He was not just a human from another world. He was a friend, a partner, and perhaps something more. Ethan took a deep breath, his heart pounding. Lyra, I want to talk about our future, he began, his voice serious. I know we come from different worlds, but I believe we can build something great together. Lyra's heart raced at his words. She felt a mixture of excitement and fear. What do you mean? She asked softly, her curiosity piqued. I want to learn more about Scifi. I want to help your people, and I want you to learn about Earth too, he replied, his eyes shining with determination. Together, we can create a bridge between our worlds. Lyra nodded slowly, her mind racing. She had never considered the possibility of uniting their peoples. But it won't be easy, she said, a hint of doubt creeping in. There will be challenges. Ethan squeezed her hand gently. I know, but we faced danger together and overcame it. We can do this too. Feeling inspired, Lyra smiled. You're right. If we work together, we can show both our peoples that there is strength in unity. They both looked around the clearing, where their friends were busy talking and laughing. There was a newfound energy among them, and Lyra could sense the change in the air. This is the beginning, she thought, feeling a spark of excitement. As the stars filled the night sky, Lyra stood up, feeling the surge of purpose. Let's gather everyone. I want to share our plan. Ethan jumped to his feet, a grin on his face. I'll help you. Together, they walked to the center of the clearing, where their friends were still gathered. Everyone. Lyra called, her voice steady and strong. The crowd turned to her, curious and attentive. "We have faced a great danger, but we have come out stronger. Today, we showed that we can work together, human and Sci-Fi alike." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Lyra continued, "I believe we can create a new beginning. We can share our knowledge and resources, learn from one another, and build a future where our worlds are united." Ethan stepped forward, his heart racing with excitement. "Together, we can explore each other's worlds. We can help one another and create a bond that lasts for generations." Cheers erupted from the crowd, and Lyra felt a wave of pride wash over her. The fear and doubt that had once filled her heart were replaced by hope and determination. As she looked into Ethan's eyes, she realized that this was not just a new beginning for their peoples, it was a new beginning for them as well. Together, they could overcome any challenge and explore a future filled with promise and adventure. In that moment, under the vast sky filled with stars, Lyra and Ethan knew they were embarking on a journey that would change their lives forever. The unexpected connection. The clearing was filled with chaos as the two sides faced each other, weapons drawn. Lyra stood tense, her heart racing. She had to protect her people, but as she looked at the human Ethan, something shifted inside her. "He isn't like the others," she thought, confusion swirling in her mind. Ethan felt the weight of the moment. "This isn't how it's supposed to be," he thought, looking at Lyra. Despite the tension, he saw something different in her eyes, fear mixed with determination. "I can't let this turn into a battle," he decided. "We need to find a way to communicate." "Everyone, stop," Ethan shouted, stepping forward, hands raised. "We don't need to fight. We can talk this out." His voice echoed through the clearing, breaking the tension for a moment. The other humans hesitated, unsure. Lyra narrowed her eyes, her grip tightening on her spear. "Why should I listen to you?" she asked, her voice fierce but unsure. Ethan took a deep breath. "Because I know we can find common ground. We all want to survive, right?" He glanced at his teammates, who were still tense but looked to him for guidance. For a moment, the clearing was silent. Lyra looked at Ethan, sensing his sincerity. What if he is telling the truth? She wondered. But doubt still nagged at her. Can humans really be trusted? Suddenly, one of the aliens behind Lyra made a move, raising their weapon. "We should attack. They are intruders." Ethan stepped in front of his teammates. "Please, just listen to me for a moment." He looked directly into Lyra's eyes, and in that moment, something unexpected happened. Their gazes locked, and Ethan felt a jolt of connection that he couldn't explain. Lyra felt it too, a flicker of something she had never experienced before. "Why am I feeling this way?" she thought, her heart racing. He is a human. He is a threat. Yet there was a warmth in his eyes that pulled her in. "What do you want?" Lyra asked, her voice softer now, still guarded but curious. "I want to learn about your world," Ethan replied. "I didn't come here to harm you or your people. I came to understand." Lyra hesitated. Understand? Why would a human care about us? She was shocked by the thought. Ethan smiled gently, trying to ease the tension. "Because we can learn from each other. We have different strengths, but we are not so different in what we want." Lyra felt a spark of hope. Maybe he is telling the truth, she thought. But the fear of her people's safety still loomed over her. "If I let you talk, what will happen?" she asked, still unsure. Ethan took a step closer, lowering his hands. "We just need to communicate. If we can understand each other, maybe we can work together." After a moment of silence, Lyra nodded slowly, signaling her people to lower their weapons. "Very well. But if I sense any danger, I will not hesitate to fight." The humans lowered their weapons, tension easing slightly. Ethan felt relief wash over him. "Thank you," he said quietly, still looking into Lyra's eyes. As they began to talk, something shifted between them. Each shared stories of their worlds, their fears, and their hopes. Lyra felt her walls start to crumble. She realized that Ethan was not just a human. He was someone who might understand her in ways she never thought possible. In that clearing, under the light of the full moon, a connection began to form, an unexpected bond that neither of them had anticipated. And for the first time, both Lyra and Ethan felt a glimmer of possibility for a different future. 3. Misunderstandings. Ethan stood still, his heart pounding as he listened to the shouting in the distance. He felt the weight of fear pressing down on him. What if Lyra's people are dangerous? He thought, what if they attack? He didn't know if he could trust her, but he had no choice. He had to find his team and get out of this alien jungle. He took a deep breath and moved cautiously toward the sound. The trees were thick, and the branches grabbed at him like hands. Just keep moving, he whispered to himself. You can do this. As he approached the noise, he could hear voices getting clearer. It sounded like a mix of anger and fear. Ethan felt a knot in his stomach. Suddenly, he stumbled upon a small clearing where two of his teammates were shouting at a group of strange, armed aliens. Get away from us, one of his teammates yelled, backing away. The aliens looked fierce, their skin shimmering in the low light. They had sharp features and were heavily armed. Ethan's heart raced. He knew this could quickly turn into a fight. He rushed into the clearing, waving his hands. Stop! Don't hurt them, he shouted, his voice rising with panic. The aliens turned to look at him, their expressions hard and unyielding. At that moment, Lyra appeared from the shadows, her spear ready. You brought them here, she accused, glaring at Ethan. I knew you were a threat. Ethan felt a surge of anger. No, I didn't bring them. They are my friends. He pointed at his teammates, trying to explain. We need to work together. Please, just listen. Lyra looked between Ethan and his friends, her heart racing. She could see the fear in her people's eyes as they faced the humans. They will destroy our home, she thought, stepping forward protectively. I must defend my territory. One of Ethan's teammates shouted, What do you want from us? The tension in the air grew thick, and everyone seemed ready for a fight. Lyra raised her spear higher. You must leave now. This is not your land. Her voice was fierce, but inside, she felt unsure. She had not wanted this confrontation, but she could not back down. Ethan took a step closer, his hand still raised in a gesture of peace. We don't want to fight. I promise. We just need to leave safely. He felt desperate to explain. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You say you come in peace, but I see your kind only bring war. She remembered the stories of her people, the destruction left behind by humans. Her heart hardened, and she prepared to defend her home. Suddenly, the other aliens advanced, and Ethan's teammates reacted. We need to fight back, one shouted, raising his weapon. No, Ethan yelled. Stop. But it was too late. The clearing erupted into chaos as the two groups faced off, neither side willing to back down. Lyra and Ethan stood on opposite sides, caught in a misunderstanding that threatened to turn violent. The jungle echoed with shouts and the sound of weapons. Ethan felt a surge of anger and frustration. Why can't they see we are not enemies? In that moment of confusion, Lyra and Ethan locked eyes, both realizing that they were trapped in a situation neither had wanted. But the misunderstandings between their worlds were growing deeper, and the night was filled with uncertainty. 1. The encounter. The night was dark on the alien planet of Zephyria. Strange creatures roamed the jungle, making noises that echoed through the thick trees. The air was heavy with humidity, and the scent of colorful flowers mixed with the damp earth. A full moon hung low in the sky, casting a silver light that flickered through the leaves. Lyra, a fierce warrior of her kind, stood silently among the shadows. Her green skin shimmered slightly in the moonlight, and her eyes glowed like two bright stars. She was on guard duty, protecting her territory from any intruders. For years, humans had tried to invade her home, seeking the powerful resources that Zephyria offered. Each time, they brought chaos and destruction. Tonight, She would not let it happen again. Suddenly, Lyra heard a rustling sound nearby. Her heart raced as she tightened her grip on her weapon, a sleek, metallic spear that glinted in the moonlight. Who dares to enter my territory? She thought, her pulse quickening. She had trained for this moment, and she was ready to fight. Creeping quietly through the dense foliage, she moved closer to the noise. With every step, she listened carefully, trying to sense what was ahead. The rustling grew louder, and she could see shadows moving among the trees. It must be a human, she thought, anger bubbling inside her. They never learn. Just then, a figure stumbled into the clearing. It was a human, lost and confused. He looked disheveled, with dirt on his face and a frightened expression in his eyes. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. He was not tall like the other humans she had seen. This one was shorter and appeared more vulnerable. But that did not matter. He was still a threat. "Stay back!" Lyra shouted, stepping into the light. The human froze, his eyes wide with fear. "I won't hesitate to use this." She raised her spear, pointing it directly at him. Ethan, the human, felt a chill run down his spine. He had never seen an alien before. Her presence was both beautiful and terrifying. He opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. All he could think about was how to survive this moment. "I'm not here to hurt you," he finally managed to say, raising his hands in surrender. Lyra narrowed her eyes, not lowering her weapon. "Lies. Humans always come to destroy." Her voice was fierce, echoing through the trees. Ethan could feel his heart pounding. "I promise, I'm just lost. I didn't mean to intrude." His voice trembled slightly, but he tried to stay calm. He knew he had to convince her he was not a threat. Lyra studied him carefully. There was something different about this human. She could see fear in his eyes, but also something else, an innocence that intrigued her. "Why should I believe you?" she asked, her voice softer but still cautious. Ethan took a step forward, lowering his hand slowly. "Because I want to help, not hurt. Please, just let me explain." For a brief moment, they stood there, locked in a tense standoff. The jungle around them seemed to hold its breath. Would Lyra attack, or could this human somehow change her mind? Arousal of new emotions. As the conversation flowed between Lyra and Ethan, the tension that once filled the clearing began to melt away. They sat together, surrounded by their people, yet lost in their own world. Lyra spoke about her home, the towering trees, the vibrant colors, and the creatures that roamed the land. Ethan listened intently, fascinated by her stories. "Your world sounds amazing," he said, his eyes shining with curiosity. "I had no idea it was so beautiful." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest at his words. It was strange and new, a feeling she had never experienced before. Maybe he really does care, she thought. She had always seen humans as invaders, but Ethan was different. He listened and showed genuine interest in her life. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, Ethan shared his own stories about Earth. "We have forests and oceans, but we also have problems," he said. "We fight over resources, and it hurts our planet." Lyra nodded, feeling a connection growing between them. "We have struggles too," she replied, "but we work together to protect our home." In that moment, something shifted in Lyra's heart. She felt a warmth spreading through her, an unfamiliar sensation that made her pulse quicken. "Why do I feel this way?" she wondered, glancing at Ethan. He was not just a human anymore. He was a friend, perhaps even something more. Ethan noticed the change in her demeanor. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern flickering in his eyes. Lyra blinked, startled by his question. "Yes, I am fine." But she knew she was not entirely fine. There was something deeper stirring within her, something she couldn't quite understand. As they talked, Lyra caught herself stealing glances at Ethan. His messy brown hair, the way his eyes sparkled when he spoke, and the kindness in his voice drew her in. She felt a strange mix of emotions: curiosity, admiration, and a hint of something else that made her heart race. Ethan felt it too. The air between them buzzed with unspoken words. Every time Lyra laughed, a smile spread across his face. Why does she make me feel this way? He thought, captivated by her strength and beauty. You're different from what I expected, he admitted, breaking the silence. I thought you would be fierce and unyielding, but you're also kind and thoughtful. Lyra's cheeks flushed at his words. I am fierce, she replied playfully, trying to hide her shyness. But I can also be understanding. The moment hummed between them, charged with an electric energy. Lyra could feel her walls coming down, and she didn't want to build them back up. What if this is wrong? She thought. But deep down, she knew it felt right. Ethan leaned closer, his voice lowering. I feel like we could be friends. Maybe more. His heart raced as he spoke, unsure of her reaction. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. More. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. She had never allowed herself to feel this way about anyone, especially a human. But the connection was undeniable. Yes, more, he repeated softly, looking into her eyes. Together, we could learn from each other. As they locked eyes, Lyra felt a spark of possibility. Maybe I can trust him, she thought, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know where this path would lead, but for the first time, she was willing to find out. In that clearing, surrounded by both humans and aliens, new emotions blossomed. With the sun rising above the horizon, it felt like the dawn of a new beginning for both of them, one filled with hope, connection, and the promise of something beautiful.